She's one of our top consultants in Scentsy. I was fortunate enough to be at I think it was St. Louis, where you talked on stage about excuse busting, and we heard your story. And you guys, I just want you to know some of the things. Her story just touched me so much, and you're going to hear tonight her talk about her childhood, how she overcame kidnapping and abandonment and all this, and went on to become so determined. And this lady takes no excuses, y'all. And she personally sponsored, huh?
Dawn still can't hear you.
I don't know why, Dawn. Maybe put in headphones. But anyway, or log back in and come back. But Becca personally sponsored over 400 people. You guys, you all say you can't get recruits. We're going to hear from an expert. 400 people before she brought her daughter on to help. So Becca, I'm giving it to you. Please just tell us anything you want. We're at all ears. You're muted right now. Okay.
I always hope that after people, I visit with people, that they'll think, oh my goodness, if she can do it, I can do it too. Because I am seriously a hot mess. And like she said, I had I think everybody has a story. And I'm always so moved when I hear, like, if I got a chance to sit down and hear what your story is, I would marvel at what you've overcome and that brought you to where you are now here on this. And I am always so moved by that. And the hardest thing for us to do sometimes is not compare our story and journey to someone else's, because all of them, if we step up to the plate, are as powerful and has opportunity to impact as many people as the person that you think, oh, I could never do that, and I wish I was like that. One of the things I'm known for is my quote, you don't have to be perfect to be powerful. And I always like to say, you just need to partner with the one who is. I believe in God, and for the rest of the time, I'll use the word higher power so that I speak to everybody's belief system. But I really couldn't have overcome the life that I started with without finally trusting in a higher power and believing that higher power could do more with my life than I could. And I went on a journey to find out, who that was for me. And so one of the things that I've learned is that all of us are destined to have a great life. We really are. And all of us are destined to have a really positive impact. But knowing that and believing that for ourselves is the biggest part of anybody's journey to success. And having grown up with, born with 5 holes in my heart and not expected to live, that's not a big deal now, but 55 years ago, 2 other children in the hospital died and I didn't. To a mom whose life was horrible. Her father, my grandfather that I never met, was on the run. He was a criminal, and they were hopping from city to city, and he died and left her alone on the streets. And a woman eventually took her in, and she became a prostitute to show her gratitude for this woman. We probably call that sex trafficking today. And so she was pretty messed up. She met my dad, who was on his, I think, 4th marriage at the time. He had ran away from home early because he came from an abusive situation. She didn't want kids. They said that when I came home from the hospital, when I would cry, she would hit me on the head with a wooden spoon till I quit crying. So I didn't know love and affection. And then one day, a lot of things transpired, but one day I was 8 and I had 2 younger sisters, and the youngest was 2, and she put us on we drove a long ways to the city where the airport was, got on a plane, a woman met us, that would be the same woman that had taken her in off the streets. We were too young, I guess, to deal with. So they drove us the next day for what seemed like a long ride to the middle of this really impoverished barrio, a community that had not much of anything. And she stopped the car and opened the door, ushered me and my two little sisters out and pointed to a little lady with puppies and said, play with the puppies and I'll be back in a few hours. And that's the last words we ever heard her speak. They said that when we were finally found, we were skin and bones, covered with lice, malnutrition. It took a lot of years before I didn't have anxiety when someone ate off my plate. And I still say to this day, if I offer you food, it's a really big token of love, right? Because you just grow up with some of these weird idiosyncrasies from your life circumstances. My dad remarried again to a woman who did the best that she knew, but what she knew was very dysfunctional, and she was incredibly abusive, not only physically, but spiritually and emotionally. And she really believed she needed to beat the devil out of me. So I just kind of share that because sometimes people look at where I am now. And if you know me, I never want anybody to hurt, and I don't want anybody to not know how amazing they are. So I'm always sometimes people call me Pollyanna. So if you don't know my backstory, you would never know that those were things I had to learn and choices I had to make, because I didn't get nurtured that way. I didn't come out that way. So by the time I was 13, I didn't think there was a God. And if there was one, I thought it was pretty cruel. And so I tried to take my life and I was unsuccessful. And the lady at the school, it was a big school in California, junior high with the high schoolers, and it was college campus. If you guys live in big cities, you know how those are. Sometimes you barely make it from one class to the next because it's so far away. But the counselor there, she asked me what was so dramatic that I was trying to take my life. And I told her, and she was quiet, and she said, okay, that's more than just breaking up with your boyfriend. She asked me a question, which at the time I thought was pretty ridiculous, but she asked me if I had a dream. And I thought, are you serious? Like, how could I have a dream? Like, why would you ask that? You obviously are a terrible counselor. I left there. Oh, and then she said to me, yes, your life is tough, but we all have a tough life. And, yours might be a little more severe than most, but you will get past it if you choose to. And she told me Eleanor Roosevelt's quote, the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. So she really encouraged me to dream. And I really believe that at all times, there's two forces speaking to us, pulling us. One that's negative, that wants us to believe in what I call the little itty bitty icky committee inside of our minds to, give up and give in and think we're broken and think nobody likes us and that nothing will ever work for us and all those negative things. There's an opposition, I really believe, who doesn't want us to rise to our fullest potential, because if we liberate ourselves, we end up liberating others, right? Then I believe there's this force that is constantly beckoning to us to believe in the divine beings that we are and to live up to our potential. And if we can grasp our potential, then we will be able to help other people reach their potential. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was so successful sponsoring 400 people, because I didn't look at Scentsy as a party plan. We always say it's more than warmers and wax. And that took me a while to find out for myself. But when you're in a leadership role, you have the opportunity to lead people to their highest and greatest good and their highest and greatest joy and their highest and greatest potential. Because once you break those barriers, which are difficult, and just do what highly successful people do enough to have the results highly successful people have. And that was a quote I had posted everywhere, that instead of listening to my little itty bitty icky committee that said I was, a basket case and a hot mess and not good enough, and my mother left me and this happened and that happened, instead of listening to that I wasn't good enough, I just said, wait a minute, all I have to do are the things the highly successful people do, and I can be successful. And sometimes we just have to focus on something like that, so that when all those things that make us freeze up and get sick to our stomach, I mean, for me, and maybe it is for you, a physical nausea and a physical fear that I had to face every time I would take one of these actions that would allow me to have the success I have today. So I believe that constantly, just like you're on here today, I'm imploring you to believe in your possibilities and believe that your personality is the best personality that you could have to fulfill the impact that you're supposed to have on the people you're supposed to impact. And so I hope that you will be like, feel really empowered and decide, hey, it doesn't matter how I feel, it just matters what I do. So I spend a lot of time when we do our leadership retreats, we've done over, I think, 10 of them in 13 years, and have people come. I spend 70% of the time training on belief. Because guys, if we don't have hope and we don't have belief, we're never going to do what it takes. There's this great book called, and I don't know how great the book is. I just love the title. So let me clarify that. And it says, if how to was enough, we'd all be rich, famous, and skinny. Because what we need to do to be successful, the 3 simple steps that we need to take to be top leaders in Scentsy or really in anything are simple. But if we don't have hope and belief, we will never be able to push past the little itty bitty icky committee and all of those nauseous, scared feelings to step into our greatness, to step into our leadership, where the whole world changes for our family, our friends, and then those that we have the opportunity to lead. And so I always say, people, if you're not where you want to be, but you see people that have what you think you would like to have, that influence for good, then you need to work on your belief. And there's 3 areas of belief that, and I would spend literally, I would have to have it playing in the headphones while I'm doing dishes, while I'm driving, in between calls, whatever, because the fear is so great. So you have to believe in the business model. Do you believe in the direct sales business model? To a certain extent you do, but if you were super confident in it, you wouldn't have near the challenge of sharing it. And one of my favorite books to recommend to people is the Flip Flop CEO, written by 2 moms in direct sales. And it just really helps build your belief, because you know, there's that saying that says faith comes from hearing the word, and usually it's attached to religion, but really faith is belief in anything, and anything that you put time into is going to build your faith. So if you just listen to the news and negative people, you're going to have great faith that there's no hope left. Or if you listen to positive people and positive things, your faith will build that there is so much hope and potential left for you. So you want to really build your belief system in the business model. And for me, I get kind of infuriated when someone says that, direct sales is a pyramid scheme, because I'll tell you what the real pyramid scheme is. 90% of the brick and mortar corporate businesses that we shop at and do business with, that are these big things that the people who stand at the door and greet, or take our money at the cash register or whatever, they're on their feet, they're working hard, they're sacrificing most of their life, 8 hours a day, and all they get is what the minimum wages or what the pyramid person at the top says that they're worth. And so when millions of dollars are made in the year, does it go to the people doing the hard work every day in the store getting up? No, it goes to the people at the top, right? Where with a direct sales business, we are at the top and we decide what we get by what we put into it. And so if you feel passionate about that and someone says to you, hey, it's a pyramid scheme, you can say, let me just talk to you about the real pyramid scheme, and tell them what you believe about that. It breaks my heart to see people every day going to work. They only get paid when they show up. I see these older people, barely can walk, and they're doing this hard labor because the pyramid that they work in doesn't give them what they're worth. So you work on that. Another thing that's really good to do is talk to people and find out people who actually make that dream income that doctors and lawyers do, right? So income disclosure statement. But I know that for years, my husband wanted me to get really excited about a direct sales business or network marketing because of the business model that it was, but I never could. I never could get there, but I did happen to know of some people, women, who are making 50 grand a month or more. So my belief that it was possible for a woman to do that was there. So if you have to hear enough stories and talk to enough people who are making thousands of dollars a month to get your belief so that you feel like it's possible, at least for someone, then you're building your belief. Do you believe in Scentsy? that's probably the easiest thing for you to do because you're here and you are selling the product. Now for me, I had gotten to a point in my life where I was like, okay, I know that you've taken me from wanting to kill myself and not believing anybody cares about me to infusing me with a love for life. And so I have this story and I have this testimony, and just tell me wherever you want me to go and I'll go and I'll do it. Like I ask every day, where do you want me? What's my next best step? And a fervent prayer in my heart, right? And things had taken me to scary places, and I ended up becoming Mrs. Utah, and that was terrifying. And I was so embarrassed by it that I didn't even want to tell my family, because they'd be like, okay, at that point I wore swisher pants. That's what my friends call them, swisher pants, but it was basically like sweatpants, but it was the waterproof fabric. So I swished everywhere I went, and my face had gotten to the point where I was really allergic to everything. So I didn't wear makeup. So the last thing, and I had grown up thinking I had bushy eyebrows, and my eyesight had thick bottleneck glasses. And so I was just Godzilla girl. And the only time I ever played sports, like the ball would get stuck up between the net and the backboard and it was always embarrassing. So and I'm not coordinated, and I'm really tall. And I just that was like the most ludicrous thing anybody could have me do. But I knew that I kept asking. And if you ask what's your next best step and what you can do, you're going to get asked to do things that you're like, no way. There's no way I am qualified to do that. But what I have learned through the years by giving in to those promptings, those inspiration, is that I don't have to be perfect to be powerful. I just have to authentic. And no matter how big of a mess I make, because I was willing to show up, I get to go up with that help of the higher power that makes up the difference. And you know what? Besides that, people would rather join someone that is passionate and not perfect, because that's not intimidating. But if someone believes and they're willing to lead the way, and they're just a little cray-cray at the same time, it's easier to be around those kind of people. So you don't need to be anything but the best self that you are. And that usually just comes in the process. So I was doing Mrs. Utah. Then I remember I found out when I was doing the Mrs. Utah thing that I was also supposed to have luckily I didn't have to have a talent. Oh, but then I had to have a service platform, and I lived in a little town of 250 people. And I was like, at that point I was kind of cocky, and I'm like, well, you put me here, so I guess you have a plan as to what my service platform would be. And so, tell me, what is that? And it's funny because I've had this fear. I don't know where I got it from, but I've had this fear of ending up in jail, for some crazy thing I did do, or manslaughter or something. I just think that would be the worst thing, to end up in jail. And so the thought came to me that I needed to work with women in prison. And I'm like, this is just your sense of humor. That's my second biggest fear. Next to being on stage and trying to act like some pretty girl. And what in the world would I have in common? What would I have in common with these scary people? And the thought, and this was 2:00 in the morning when this conversation was sort of happening in thoughts in my mind. And I felt like I should get up and Google what common denominators women in prison had. And here was the thing that I found out, that women in prison had been sexually, physically abused, had drug addicts with their family, had criminal in the family, came from a broken home. Guess what? I could relate to them. The only thing is, there came a point in my life where I made a different choice. And that choice came from listening to those other voices that were trying to help me get over my victimhood, right? I remember on the bus one day, that same year when I tried to take my life, I was one of the last people to be picked up. And so, if you remember the days when you rode the bus to school and, if you were one of the last people, there was only one seat left or 2 seats to sit. So I always ended up sitting by this girl. And because every day she was a constant in my life, I named her my best friend. But she didn't want to be my best friend. She just happened to be the girl that always got stuck with me on the bus. And every day I'd come and I'd show her a new bruise or something, and I would be whining about my life. And she said to me, look, we all have a tough life, So here's the deal. You either get over it or you find a new shoulder to cry on. And at first I thought that was heartless and shocked, but that was the same time the counselor had said, you know, what's your dream? And it seemed like I was getting these invitations that said, you know, there is a different way than victimhood you can go. And when I got over feeling sorry for myself, I thought maybe I do have a choice. And so that was the beginning of a long thing that taught me that we are not a product of our circumstances, we're a product of our choices. And every minute of every day, we have a chance to make a different choice. Like you guys are choosing right now to spend valuable time listening to something that will help you with your business and your future. So that's another thing about leadership. We need to be the voice that sometimes, you know, says the tough love thing. When someone says, I can't book a party, or no one wants to buy from me, or whatever, that is not true. We have leaders in our downline, like Karen Hesser, that pretty much sell $10,000 a month, every single month. We have people who keep turning all of their customers into consultants and do thousands of dollars a month because they make the choice to work on their belief, the belief in the business model. They have the belief in their product, the belief in what's possible. And when you have those beliefs, then you'll start talking and you'll start sharing. So I'm sorry, I am so ADD and I just keep jumping back and forth, and I pray that you are able to follow me and get something out of what I'm sharing tonight. So here I am, I'm doing the Mrs. Utah thing. I'm working with women in prison. I ended up writing a little book called Victim or Victorious. I mentioned earlier how I wrote that quote, if I just do the things highly successful people do, I'll be successful. So that every day I would force myself to go and do the things that no one wants to do, that embarrassed my family, right? I did the things. And one of those things that I committed to, because so I'm asking this question and I'm busy doing Mrs. Utah. We live in a town of 250 people. I have a lip balm private label business. I'm doing 48 trade shows a year. I'm almost never home. I have 2 kids. I'm really at this point having like the nervous breakdown kind of things, because I'm so tired because it's 3 to 5 hours to an airport, or it takes me a couple days to drive anywhere. So I'm gone at least 5 days a week. So you can't say there's not time. If someone tells you they're too busy to do Scentsy, well, I was already feeling like there's no way, but I kept asking what's the next best step. And I kept getting this prompting that I should become involved with Scentsy. Now, another point that I left out a few years before that, before Scentsy, I had thought I would start a home party plan, and I called it Happy Hangups. And I wanted a really unique candle. So we were making our own candles. We went with the gel candle route. And I decided that I didn't really like to be out at night, that I wasn't really a party person. And I learned that most scent made me sick. So we ended up selling our supplies, our candle making supplies, and we're totally out of it. And it's kind of fun to know that at one time when we were selling our simmering gels at a home show in Salt Lake City, Utah, Karen and Colette were there, the 2 original moms that started Scentsy, selling Scentsy, and Orville's company was there, his ShamWow and his Car Wax, if you're familiar with his past businesses at all, and Chuck Thompson were all at the same show. And at that point, none of our paths had crossed. So I just always think that's kind of interesting. But anyway, so we sold that because scent made me sick. And then, like I said, so we were just going full forward with our private label lip balm company. I was doing Mrs. Utah. I was traveling and I was speaking to all kinds of organizations, going and volunteering, teaching at the prisons for the women, going into schools, just all over, thinking I was going to have a nervous breakdown, that I didn't have time. And now I feel like, because every day I'm still always asking, okay, what's the best thing to do today, that I'm supposed to join Scentsy. And it made no sense. Why? Because it was a party company and I knew I didn't like that already. And it was a scent company on top of it. And I really thought this time the guy upstairs had it really, really wrong. I did. I thought, this is wrong. And so you know what? I'm gonna do it. But this is what I said. I will do it for 30 days. Okay. And I will act like the best darn consultant there ever is, so that in 30 days, I can say that I did everything I think the best consultant on a planet would do, so that I could show you it doesn't work. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I was humbled enough to at least try it for 30 days. and so motivated to prove that it didn't work by working so hard in that first 30 days that I ended up having a life and influence that I would have never done on my own. And that's why I say it's good to surrender, and it's good to ask, then it's good to do the things highly successful people do so you can have the things they have. And just keep kicking the little itty bitty icky committee to the curb, because you are more than enough. You're in this business because he knows if you will do the things highly successful people do, you have the heart to be a great leader. You have what it takes. You just need to take the action. You have what it takes. You just need to take the actions long enough to get the results. And here's the thing, the people that you're afraid to talk to need you. They need you to be that bright light. They need you to see the future they can't see. They need you to believe in this and teach them how to believe in this business model and how to believe in themselves so they too can liberate more people. There's just that opposition that likes to keep everybody miserable. And we don't want to listen to that propaganda. You know, we're smart enough that if we wouldn't listen to other propaganda outside of us, you know, beating up on people, we'd say that's propaganda, I'm not going to buy, but we listen to it when it comes to ourselves. And so for me, I had to put all over the house, everywhere, in my purse, in my car, everywhere, the thoughts I wanted to be true for me before I got strong enough and had enough confidence that came from good results to easily kick the little itty bitty icky committee to the curb. And so that's why listening to stuff like this 24/7, even while I was asleep. Thank you so much, Karen. I love you. And just see it everywhere. And so when I joked to my kids that one day I was going to take our van and have words written all over, painted all over it for my favorite post, they were worried I was going to do it because I know how powerful words are. I know how powerful words are. And so we have to commit to ourselves that we're going to only speak words that lead us to our potential so we can lead others to their potential. And a lot of times when that happens, you're going to have to say goodbye to some pretty, to some things that are going to be really hard to let go of. Maybe it's people, definitely probably your own self-talk. Maybe it's time that you spend in the news or whatever, because we can't change those things. The only thing we can change is our life and then the lives of others. And then we create a ripple effect, and then those people go out and those people go out. And that's how we really affect the kind of change that we need in the world. And I really believe that direct sales, and Scentsy in particular, has the power to lift people out of darkness. So look at this as what it is. You know, we always say it's a personal development program with a paycheck. And, you know, so I say, so if you can build your belief, then you need to do three things. You need to be talking to people, and you need to be sharing, giving them a personal experience with Scentsy. Oh my goodness. I am having a hot flash and I'm not very good at that. Let me go grab my ice pack. Okay. So you're thinking, what did I just say? So for me, I'm not really a great salesperson, and since I really didn't like scent, I'm sure some of you can relate to this, right? 3 years of this. Oh my goodness, when's it going to stop? Okay. I just think the product sells itself. And so I believe the easiest way is to give people a personal experience. And when I started, we only had warmers and wax and scent circles, right? And then we had room sprays. And now we have so many things to keep going back even to the same people to give them a personal experience and to get them using more and more products. I mean, it's so easy today. So instead of just asking to everybody, have you tried Scentsy? Even if they haven't, they're going to say yes. But if you said, have you had a personal experience? And if they say yes, oh, what was your favorite scent? Then you find out really quick if they're still lying to you or not. But most people will, you know, say, no, I really haven't. I haven't had a personal, and that's demoing. Demoing is where it's at, because either they're going to fall in love with it or they're not. And if they fall in love with it, that means they want it. So the next thing is to figure out how's the best way to get them to have it. And so, you know, they can I say, well, I don't like to let my best customers pay for it. I like to help them earn it for free. And we go that route. Or if you're really, really passionate about the business model, I lead with the business model. Because for me, I would always say, gee, don't you ever wish you'd put in the person who came up with a pet rock, or maybe one of the first people to join Mary Kay or something, like to have that opportunity? And most people say, yeah, I dreamed of having my own business. Yeah. I'm like, for $99, that's what you get here. You know, you love the product. Now we can say it used to just be 97% of homes and offices use scent, but now we have 100% because we have everything for cleaning and for laundry and for kids. I mean, like, so we for 100% can fit at least with one category at the very minimum in most people places. So we have something that's over a $2 billion a year market share. And when people don't really think about that, right? You're like, yeah, fragrance alone is over a $2 billion a year pizza. And it's so easy to have your own slice of that pizza because people love it. And all you have to do is like, let them try it like you did. And for $99, you get more than what you've just invested, plus the opportunity to make money. And I was passionate about that. And I shared it with them passionately. And I think that's one reason I was so successful in sponsoring so many people, is because I believe that. And I let them know what I believed, what really was going on in my head. All of this excitement about this $2 billion a year market share, this piece of pie, that all I had to do was let people use it. And they loved it. And the important thing is that they find the scent that they like. So whenever I send samples or do something, I always find out what category they like, their top 3 categories. And then I send a fragrance cube in each of those. It's a tax write-off. I want them to have a full experience with it. I'm not one that believed in just, felt samples, so that might work too, So I'm just saying, once that they've loved it, and you've painted this picture of what's possible, because most people are like, what? It's a $2 billion a year. What? People make how much? So did you know Nicole Furland, who was in the top, 100 consultants that joined Scentsy, who, the magazines when you check out at the counter, and one of them is called Women's World. I think it's the Women's World one. And they were doing an article at women who made $1 million a year in their pajamas. And they, out of all the direct sales company, they featured, I think, 3 women, and our Nicole Furland was one of them. So here's a story you can share, right? That in Women's World, maybe you can find out how to get a copy of that article and say, I know so many women who, it's not easy. It's simple, but I mean, you got to get over yourself. You got to do something. But if you can really get your vision where it's at, you kind of get excited about it. So you want to offer them opportunity, offer a chance to do it, and then you move on. 3 weeks before I joined Scentsy, I would have bet anybody 50 grand, even though I didn't have that, right? That I would never join a party company. So timing is a thing too. And it usually takes people 5 to 8 invitations before they do business with us. The thing is, if you give them a personal experience, it usually cuts that down to the first time, at least, to become a customer or a host, but to keep moving forward from that. So it's a timing game, and it's an exposure game. It's asking the right questions, but it always starts first with your passion and your belief. And maybe your goal will be, I am ready to be the leader I was born to be. I'm ready to liberate myself and other people. Like, you've got to always think of the bigger picture. Years ago, when I met my husband, Terry, I know Karen knows Terry, and I know he loves Karen. He was my second and last husband. And unless he dies and I remarry, see how irrelevant I can be sometimes. I wanted to have a lot in common with him, and I had met him, and we were learning all about things to overcome, grow. We spent a lot of money overcoming our little itty bitty icky committee by going to positive seminars and doing things. And I always had this fear of matches, guys. Like, I couldn't even, if there was a gas stove, I couldn't cook dinner until someone came home and lit the match. I just had this serious fear that little thing was going to just engulf me. And he wanted to go and become a fire walking instructor. And we had become rapid eye therapists, and we had been doing all kinds of cool things. But this, I registered with him, but as it got closer and closer, I thought, there's no way I can do this. And I was terrified that I was going to start to drift on a different path than my spouse. And still, with all of that, I couldn't motivate myself to go because I was so afraid of fire. So he went for 2 weeks to the same person that certified Tony Robbins to become a fire instructor. He went without me. I chickened out. I stayed home. He came back, and it happened to be around January, and all of his sisters, grown sisters, and their kids were here for the holidays for a visit. And they were real excited to have Terry put on a fire walk for them. And so he had us go out and grab all the wood and then roll up newspapers. We made this big teepee of wood, of a wood stack. And then we put in papers in all the holes, then poured gasoline, and then other people lit the fire. Like, I helped with all of that until it came to the fire part. And then he said, this is going to take 3 or 4 hours to burn down. Let's go inside. So he went inside, and he gave us like this 4-hour pep talk. And when he was explaining and saying, if you want to succeed, you have to know your why. You have to clearly envision why you would go to all this trouble, why you would face your fears, why you would bust through those excuses. You need to know what it is that you're working for. And I just kept thinking, man, how I would love to not have fire be holding me back, how my fear of fire, I just would love to get over that and have that in common with my spouse. And I thought, after thinking, okay, yeah, maybe you're listening to this and you're getting a little motivated. And that's what I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I can do this. And by now it was dark, and we walked out, and you could see the coals. They were all red and everything. And he's like, okay, grab some rakes and let's rake a path so that we can walk across it. And I went to go rake it out, and I could feel the heat on my face, and I dropped my rake, and I went back and go, oh yeah, no, no, I'm already getting like uncomfortable. And I certainly haven't walked with this with bare feet. Right. And I watched the teenagers go across, and my sister-in-laws and brother-in-laws go across, and they were all so brave. And I was just sitting there, and I kept thinking about kind of the commitment I'd made in that meeting that we had. And that's what he said. If you can focus, that was the trick to firewalking. Your mind creates so much, and whatever you focus on is what you get. That's why you got to have your vision board, and that's why you've got to know, and you want to have an accountability buddy, somebody that keeps you remembering why you're doing the boring things, why you're giving up TV, why you're letting go of a toxic relationship, why you're willing to be uncomfortable, why you're willing to spend money to send out some samples, why, right? You have to have that. And so I started thinking again about why I wanted to be able to walk across that fire. And if you keep your mind on the win, you don't have time to feel the pain. Your mind won't give any attention or power to the fire. It's just really the craziest thing, you guys. And so they say, though, if you lose your focus when you're walking across fire and start to think, I'm going to get burned, this is dangerous, these are hot, whatever, your brain sends the messages, and you will start to feel what they call a fire kiss. And if you don't refocus, you will end up like my husband said. There was a guy there, and he got burnt all the time. He was back like the 10th time to get training. But he still hadn't got his mind where he needed to be. So it's a real thing. So that's what I thought, okay, I'll just focus on my why and just how good it's going to feel and what it's going to feel like. And all of that, if I walk across there. And you know what? I walked across those hot coals. It was the coolest, most empowering thing that really says we get what we think about. We get what we focus on, right? And so then I'm like, I got to do this again. I so got to do this again. And so I thought about what I was supposed to think about, the why, the end result, how that would look, how that would feel. And now I kind of had an idea because I had done it once, and I went again, and I'm like, oh my gosh, So then I go the third time. The third time I'm walking across, I'm not thinking about what had got me through the first 2 times. I'm only thinking about like, I'm so cool and I'm walking on hot coals. And then the minute my mind went to the hot coals, I started to feel that fire kiss. I had given my attention, my focus, my belief to the wrong thing. So I quickly got back that vision on what was on the other side. And then I took a break. That was just too close. But, and then a few years later, I did it again. And because usually the power of facing a big fear will last you for a while. And then you got to like, go at it again. So we all have excuses. We all have things that have happened into our life that have formed our fears. We have an opposition that every day is telling us why we shouldn't. And we have well-meaning people telling us that that's not going to happen and that's stupid. And why would you do that? Because here's the thing. If you do the hard thing and you make it work, you take away their excuse. And then they have to look at themselves. So it's kind of like the crabs in the barrel. It's so much easier for people to keep us down because they don't want to look at the fact that if it's possible for you, then they're going to have to either own up that they're a coward and unwilling to believe in their highest self. And they don't want to do that. So that's why people tend to bring you down, because they don't want to have to face it when their very dear friends or someone they love showed them what was really possible. And so when you're on this journey, that's why you're a leader, because there are times when you're the only one who believes in what's possible, you and your higher power that will help you. You just have to believe. So I hope that you will get your why really clear, and that will change. And I hope you will get a really positive person. I hope that you will get rid of those things that are in people or voices or whatever that's holding you back, and think about where you're spending your time. And is that where you need to be reading the Flip-Flop CEO or the Dream Giver or replaying something like this or getting on the directors and the Scentsy things, whatever it is, you're going to have to change what you're doing to get change in your life. Because if you're not where you want to be, that means lots of things have to. And remember, your mind cannot hit a target it can't see. It's really important to write it and to put it out there in pictures. And realize you are going to have a lot of opposition. You're going to have a lot of fear, but you have what it takes to overcome it. I did do a 30-day excuse buster thing on YouTube. If you want to watch those 5 to 10 minute segments every day for 30 days, after I'd been in Scentsy, after I'd done the work and was enjoying the success. And it was about, well, it was this year of St. Louis when I talked about excuse busting, and I was already earning really good money, and I didn't really need to, I had more than enough people to take care of. So I didn't really need to be sponsoring anymore. And I got to thinking, I wonder if it's still really possible to do what I did. And so I left my house during the week in the little village of 250 people, went up to Salt Lake where Kara and Colette started, where there's like a superstar director or more on just about every block. And my goal was to get 3 to 5 new contacts a day. And so during the 30 days, I talked to you about my actual day experiences. So there's a lot of information I share in that 30 days, and it might be helpful to watch that with a team member or something and just see what it was like. And yeah, it's always possible. And we have people joining that have been with us. Like we had a gal on our Saturday call that joined in 2019, and out of 35,000 people in our downline, she was the #1 seller. And that's people in all regions that we have. So there's people who join Scentsy every day and every year that are making the kind of results happen that have the potential to make more than me and any of the other top 10 winners, because it just has to do with what you do. And then the other thing is just to, and this will be my last point, I'm probably tired of hearing from me, is to not form an attachment to when you offer personal experience. I would tell people, look, if you just try it. What are your favorite scents? Okay, try these. If you're not in love with it and you don't want it, I know you know what you're saying no to because you've experienced it. And then if they say no, I'm good with that because I know they know what they're saying no to. And then I just honor people where they're at, because not everybody's supposed to be a Scentsy consultant, a Scentsy customer, or a Scentsy leader. They're not. The creator has lots of places he needs all of his different kids to be. And if we honor that, if we just do our part and just offer those people who come across our path, then we just let it go. It's like catch and release. I caught you, I gave you the experience. I've asked you the 3 questions. And if you're not ready now, I'm going to ask you, don't tell them this, but you're going to ask them 5 to 8 times. And you're going to be able to demo them, give them a personal experience with all of our products. So you can have these different things, but you don't need to push. You just need to ask and make it available, and then trust in the higher power, trust in everybody's journey. And if you do that, you won't be holding on to something that's not supposed to be there. Then your hands and heart will be open to receive those people and success that you're supposed to have. And that's the biggest mistake so many people make. They get so attached to whether this person is going to join or buy or join and then keeps going. No, we don't want to do that. If we're feeling that angst about a person's success, and if they certify or this or that, if we're feeling angst, then we're not receiving. Do you have any questions or anything? If not, I mean, if you do, I'm happy to. I think you just have to unmute yourself.
Wow. You were on fire. I love it, love it, love it. So tell us, how many did you say was in your group? And
yeah, and what?
And tell us how your daughter now works with you and what that's all about.
So yeah, I think last time we had about 35,000 people, and I bet we've had at least 80,000 people, because the majority of people don't stay. Scentsy has a much higher stickiness rate, which is amazing to me, how many people have been with us 10 or 11 years, but people are always coming and going. And when you can honor that, when you can just trust that, hey, if I'm doing my part to be a blessing in life, I just do it for as long as they're supposed to be here. So people come and go. It's not because there's nothing wrong with you. In fact, you should be proud of yourself if you can create an environment where you can bless people, bless them to come in and bless if they need to go, right? So also the other thing that I had learned, I was pretty much a control freak. And one of the seminars that we paid to go to had said, if you wait to hire help, you'll never be able to afford them. And so I learned right off the bat that there are things that I am good at. There's only so much time, and there's things that other people are good at. And organization and little busy work I'm not good at. So I hired people. Sometimes it was just like consultants in my downline that lived by me, or somebody that might be interested in the business, to come to my house and do the dishes and label the product and help sort the orders. And even if I didn't have the money to pay them, I would pay them in product. But what I was good at was sharing my vision, right? I was good at sharing my belief in what is possible. So they would be doing my dishes or labeling product, and they would hear me like you're hearing me right now. And pretty soon they'd be doing what they were hearing me do. And then they would be like, why am I working for her? I should be at home talking to someone and letting someone else label my stuff. So I started bringing in people that way. And then I started making enough money that I was able to hire people to do all the busy work. Now, if you like to watch movies, then that's a good time for you. And if you have kids or whatever, but you have to bring in people to help you, because I believe that we are capable of the $200 an hour work, and other people who just want to get the $8 to $15 or just get their Scentsy product free. You need to hire help to do it, especially if we're going to grow massively and fast. So at one point, I had 5 people working for me, a couple full-time and a couple whatever, because I was bringing on like 20 to 20 some people a month for my first couple years. And I was really trying to sew into people's lives with notes and cards and things like that. My favorite quotes that had helped me, that I plastered everywhere, and just building people up. I really wasn't a leader that ever said, hey, if you do this much, we'll hit director, or if we do this much, we can earn this. I never did that to people. I just encouraged them where they could go, but I never made it about a team or a promotion or about whatever I needed. To worry about what they needed. There's a favorite quote I have that says, you can't help someone else to the top of the mountain without getting there yourself. So my focus was really on other people and whether they wanted to be a hobbyist or if they wanted to be a director. But I really feel like most people have no idea what's possible, and we have to let them know. And lots of times they'll snowball into that. So anyway, so down the road to a certain point, one of the most income producing activities that I was doing was at the 15-day mark about, and the 27-day mark, we would go through and run a report to see what they needed to either be active or, get the $600 a month, because they hit 2,000, or maybe they just needed one person active or just sponsored to hit a thing. So I hired Callie to send out emails to them. At that time, emails were effective, to let them know. And so then people be like, oh, really? I didn't know that. They don't know that. How are they going to know that? They're not showing up at events. They're not reading the book. They only know what we tell them. So I brought her on, and she lived not even where I was. And then about 4 years in, my husband was dying. All of his organs were failing, and he went into heart failure and everything. And so Callie came home, my daughter, to help with that. And I just brought her on full time. To help with, personal stuff, whatever. So she kind of was a personal assistant. Then I started a dog clothing business. She helped with that. And she kind of just grew into it. And now, I look at her, and she really, the last couple years, she has, she's saying, if you've met her or listened to a training by her or whatever, she is incredible. And so I have stepped back because I believe this business model is meant to make enough money to do what the next best step is, right? That you get systems in place, people in place, and then maybe your next best step is to always be 100% showing up at Scentsy and leading your people on Facebook every day. Or maybe it's to go on a mission like, Heidi and Orville are doing. Maybe it's to go and do an orphanage. We don't know what our next best step is, but it usually always requires money and confidence and belief. And this business will help you with all of those things for whatever your next best step is. And so, about 2.5, 3 years ago, I was able to pretty much step away, except for some trainings. And I'm on our Saturday calls about 80% of the time. And then Callie takes a little bit of a break, but now she does all the day-to-day things. And so lots of times people say, well, how did you do that financially? So I pay her a really good wage and a bonus. And so like this last year, it was like, she gets so much bonus for how much we do more than the year before. Cause pretty much she's doing all the day-to-day stuff now. I just do some of this fun stuff, but I went through that time where I didn't sleep, and I traveled all the time and did all the sponsoring that pretty much built the big business. And so we went to we set up the business, and she's like part of our business entity. So she's basically on payroll, but it's, when you can have two names showing or whatever for awards and how we present ourselves to that. So that's how we do that. And the promise is when I die, then she gets the whole business. So that's another reason to sacrifice and do some of the hard things to continue to help it to grow.
I think
Any
Karen
other
has a question that she typed in.
I didn't see it. Can you tell me?
She said, what are the 3 areas of belief again, please?
Okay, belief in the business model. You have to believe and be 100%. So when someone says that's Lisa, that's a pyramid thing, you can get on your soapbox and really educate them about who the real pyramid scheme people are. The people at the corporate who take all your money and just give you minimum wage or maybe a little bit more. Okay, see how feisty I am? Because I have a solid belief in that. And that's what you want to be. You want your belief to be that feisty. You want to believe in Scentsy and your product line. And you need to believe what's possible for other people is for you. So you really, and I didn't talk about that very much, you really need to believe in you, why the creator created you and why he gave you your personality and why that is more than enough, why that is exactly what you need to reach the people that only you can reach. Because we all have people who, like, there's some people, I just make them sick because I'm so, positive. And I'm kind of churchy, and I like all of that, but one thing I have found though, is that if you're just authentic and you really love people and you don't judge them, you win almost everybody over. almost everybody, but there are people that you won't, and you just have to, will you stir those, baby? You just have to learn to grow a tough skin. That's the hardest thing, is you can love people and you can want for them, and they just not only reject it, but they'll talk bad about you. But if you know that your heart was in the right place, you just got to bless and release. And you know how we always say you can't say the wrong thing to the right person when it comes to sharing the business opportunity. Like if their destiny is to be part of this, all you have to do is show up. You don't have to be perfect to be powerful, but you had to be the connector piece that offered them the opportunity. We have to do that. And that's what I'm saying. If it's for them, first, fifth, eighth time, it'll happen. If it's not, you just keep offering, you just keep demoing. Can you, how come I can't see the whole comment? Oh, let's see. Jen taught me early on that if everyone likes you, you're doing something wrong. Exactly. And you know, there's that oppositional force, and there's people who just love playing on that team. So it couldn't matter. You can give them the moon. And I had to learn that the hard way. You know, I really did. I really thought you could rationalize and reason with everybody. You can't. So I finally got to the point where I'd say, if you want to make things happen, I will coach you and I will work with you. And you tell people what they need to be doing. Like for me, that first month, I demoed for 3 to 5 people a day. I think it's easier to do massive amounts because you're always going to get so many no's because they haven't been around you enough. They don't want to be suckered in. They don't have time, whatever. So a lot has to do with the timing thing with them. But if you're asking 3 to 5 people a day, and then you move those people to your list until you've gotten to at least 8 times over months, whatever it is, there'll always be somebody out of every 10 that says yes. And you'll be so excited about that yes, that the ones who told you no aren't affecting you. And that's why I like massive action, because if you just do 1 a day and it takes 10 days to get a yes, it's really hard to keep positive. But if you ask and do demos 3 to 5 a day, and it takes only 2 days to get a yes, and sometimes all 5 will say yes. And sometimes, 9 will say no. But the law of the harvest is you cannot not succeed if you're doing it enough. And I learned that from my husband. Belonged to a company years and years ago that was A.L. Williams, which was like a business model like ours, but it was for insurance, and talk about a tough market. And they learned on stage from this guy that if you just said, for them, all he did was, his goal was to ask 10 people a day this question. 10 people a day, he would say, you don't want insurance, do you? And there'd always be someone that would say, yeah, I do. I actually is on my list. Great. They either talked about it then or they set an appointment. So I would always tell my downline, like, you don't like candles, do you? You don't like candles. And most people will say, what do you mean? I love them. I'm a candle addict. Ask my friends. So it's an easy way to ask a question. And then you're like, okay, well, have you had a personal experience with Scentsy? Or you don't like your laundry to smell good, right? Or you don't like this or that, whatever product you're doing at the moment. And you're just like, you don't. It's easier on your psyche when you're like prepared for the no too. And then people like to do the opposite of you. So they're like, what do you mean? I love it. So if you'll just do something daily, and so New Year's Eve was the night that we were eating shrimp, and I just felt that prompting every day. I was saying, okay, what's the next best step? And it kept being to join Scentsy, and it went against everything that made sense. And I just knew if I told my husband, who already knew I was never home and going crazy, that I wanted to do something else, and let alone a candle company, when we knew we'd sold ours and scent made me sick, he would think I was crazy. Fortunately for me, he was getting the same kind of inspiration. And so he said yes. And since I thought, okay, I'm going to do this, and the next 30 days, I'm going to prove that this doesn't work. I realized the next day was New Year's Day, and I was supposed to start my 3 to 5 people a day, and they were doing football games and parties. And like, wasn't that a good excuse to put it off, to not bother anybody on like Super Bowl day, But now I just said, I got to do it. So you can't let anything get in your way. When you go to the dentist, you just say, whatever product demoing, like for me, it was warmer. So I'd be like, hey, where's your plug-in? They'd be like, why? And then they'd be like, right here. And I go, okay, what scent do you like? And I'd have 3 to 5 cubes out in a little container. Say, pick one of these. And they'd say, I like that one. Now, what's going on? Why do you want to plug in? Whatever. And I'd be like, okay, I'm just going to put this in here while I'm getting my teeth cleaned or my hair done or whatever. And then we'll talk when I'm done. I didn't ask for permission. I just said, where's your plug-in and what do you like? People, it's like people follow you. Whatever you do, they will follow you. So sometimes you just have to act as if, act confident, act like you're the best consultant on the world until you feel like it. Pretend like you've been hired by Warner Brothers Studios to play a movie part of the best consultant, and then show up like that, like you're being played a part, like you're just acting, because pretty soon you'll fall naturally into the role and you'll see that you can become that consultant. Anything else?
I am so glad we're recording this because it's just been awesome.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, you know what? And your smile the whole time through and your head nodding just made me feel so good. It mattered. It helped me so much. So thank you.
We are blessed that you had the time to spend with us. So, anybody else have anything before we let Becca go?
Just, I love you, Becca. Hey, Terry. And thank you so much, Delinda, for inviting me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Oh, I miss you so much, girl.
I missed you too.
Thank you.
All
Thank you
right.
for doing that. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, yes, it was. I was getting emotional in several of the places. So, well, I'm
Well,
gonna.
I'd love for you to, let me just say this. I'd love to hear what goal, what target, what massive action, whatever, and private message me. And then, let me know how you're doing, so I can remind you to kick that little itty icky committee to the curb and make things happen.
That's
Okay.
right.
Thanks, guys. Hopefully we see each other soon.
All
Bye.
right. Yes, can't
Thank
wait.
you.
Bye-bye. Thank you guys for joining.
Thank you, Delinda.
Thank you.